Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is war, specifically the war between U.S. and Iran, Gaza Israel, Russia Ukraine. Specifically, what do the prophecies say? You see, you can look at the news, they can tell you what is happening, but what they can't tell you is what God is doing today. We're going to explore that. Now, first, I'm going to start with a little bit of good news. As I told you, I thought that the 3 sponsors we had apparently left us. But I got a phone call, and they said, absolutely not. We love Prophecy Club, and we want this to continue. So they have, how do I say this? They've expressed interest to support Prophecy Club. So I'm going to support them. Now, that means that I'm going to be doing normal interviews with them a time or two a month, and you'll occasionally be getting emails that we send you talking about them. But again, all of this is to help us to be able to continue. And, of course, we still need your donations, because at the end of the day, donations do it. But anyway, if you do have an IRA or a 401k, then it would be very good for you to call them, 800-200-GOLD, 800-200-4653, and just say, here's my situation. I've got this IRA, I've got this 401k, and am I okay, or am I possibly in danger of losing it or losing a lot of it? Also, if you want to get one of the prepper bars, you call 844-741-1776, 800-200-GOLD, 4653. So, yes, we're going to be supporting them, and they're supporting us. Okay, so I got this email today, and I was encouraged by it. And since we prophecy students from time to time need some kind of encouragement, I thought I'd read it to you. So this was my reply. Well said. I may put this on the program. So this is what he said in the text below, big enough to where you can read it. There is no other prophecy program or ministry dedicated to prophecy with a credible history of the Prophecy Club. Thank you. That is what we work for here. No, actually, very little of what has been said on the Prophecy Club has come true. But what you say is there to be seen and heard by those that watch. Not every storm seen on the horizon comes overhead. Some turn, some disappear, but as many as should be seen are seen. Not every storm is seen. Not every tear is known. But I would rather know that the possibilities that to be caught, so I would not be unaware. Someday, everything will line up. We that pay attention will recognize it, and speak about it. No hitter or no perfect game is not recognized as such until the game is nearly over. And they made a good point. The world mocks prophecy in the 2nd inning. We're in the 5th inning now. And it doesn't take long to get 12 outs when everything else falls into place. It, whatever it is, can happen very quickly when it's time. There are so many scenarios that can turn out to be the last inning or the last out, then suddenly come and boom. How did we not see it? All right, so on to our first part of the topic, war. Question is there about to be a war between Gaza Israel, U.S., Iran, a war in the Middle East, to put it in general? So this is what they're saying. This is what the news says. Then we're going to talk about what the prophecies say. Leak. Israel preparing to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. And I've got another reason to where apparently they are planning on doing that. It says Israel is preparing to strike Iran's nuclear facilities, and Trump recently demanded that Tehran stop enriching uranium. Iran's supreme leader blasted the Trump administration on Tuesday and said that the Islamic Republic will continue to pursue their own policies. For the Americans to say we won't allow Iran to enrich uranium is utter nonsense. We aren't waiting for anyone's permission. The Islamic Republic has certain policies, and it will pursue them. In other words, Trump, take a flying leap. We're going to make an atomic bomb with or without you. The article goes on to say, Israel is making preparations to strike Iranian nuclear facilities, and it could also risk tipping off a broader regional conflict in the Middle East? That's the big question. Are we about to see a big conflict in the Middle East? What do the prophecies say? That, in fact, there is deep disagreement within the U.S. government about the likelihood that Israel will ultimately act, meaning without the United States. Whether and how Israel strikes will likely depend on what it thinks of the U.S. negotiations with Tehran over its nuclear program. Now, this is interesting. HalTurnerRadioShow.com says, sudden, serious, and very unusual military movements. Okay, so, with satellites, there are very few things that a nation can do that can't be spotted. That's what he's talking about. There were unusual movements by the British Royal Air Force observed today. 3 to 4 KC-2 and KC-3 Voyager air refueling tankers, accompanied by an unknown number of fighter aircraft, arrived Tuesday at the RAF, whatever you say that, in Cyprus, in the eastern Mediterranean Sea. For days, the rumor mill has been churning out all sorts of claims that there has been a sort of break between the U.S. and Israel. Well, now wait a minute. I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that America always supports Israel. But in light of Trump going over to Saudi Arabia, to UAE, and to Qatar, we have to start saying, okay, he has kissed and made up with the Arabs, so what's going on? Let's go on. There has been sort of a break between the U.S. and Israel with regard to attacking Israel's nuclear program. The fact that the U.S. recalled 6 B-2 stealth bombers home from the deployment on Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean 2 days ago was the clearest sign yet that the U.S. does not intend to attack Iran. Now, I'm not a military expert, but my understanding is that those B-2 stealth bombers are what can carry the specifically heavy bombs for bunker busters that you would use to drop on Iran that could go deep underground to destroy their facilities. So, in that they have pulled them, is basically America saying that we're not going to be attacking Iran. Then, of course, Trump also pulls all of these sanctions off of Syria. And the Syrian president and him have become buddies. Well, Syria, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar are all enemies of Israel. They're all, sad to say, they're brothers, blood brothers, but they are enemies. So it looks like maybe the Brits are going to help Israel. Let's go on. One wonders if the Israelis have convinced the British to replace the Americans. Good point. The deployment of air refueling tankers is done when a military knows that they are sending aircraft either great distance into heavy combat or both. Flights from Israel to Iran would require refueling just before the Israelis entered Iran airspace, then, presumably, combat refueling again on the way out. Israel does have some slight air refueling capability, but it's not near big enough. And they've ordered new ones, but the new ones won't be delivered for another year. Apparently, the U.S. refused to supply air refueling tankers on Israel for this operation. Okay, so what's it saying? If this is true, it's saying that America has turned her back on Israel. That's a problem. Genesis 12:3, I will bless them that bless you, and I will curse them that curse you. As I've said, America, I've told my children, never, ever go against Israel. Well, what if they're wrong? Well, everybody's wrong from time to time, but we always stand with Israel. Now, how does that fit in with possibly Trump forcing Israel to give the Palestinians a state? It plays. It looks like maybe America has turned away from Israel, maybe more over to the Saudis and the Qatars and UAE, Arab Emirates. It looks like maybe he would force Israel to give the Palestinians a state. Hang on. Also apparent is whatever is going on cannot wait. So it seems the Israelis ran to the British for more fighter jets and air refueling capacity. Lo and behold, the British Royal Air Force appears with refueling tankers and fighter aircraft. Intel sources are briefing me with details claiming that Israel and the British are allegedly in the final stages of planning a large assault upon Iran's nuclear program and may carry out that attack while the U.S. is still negotiating with Iran. Given the reality that air refueling tankers would enter a potential war operation very close to the time that the actual operation would begin, one has to wonder if Israel and Britain are going to attack Iran as soon as this weekend. Now let's jump to Michael Snyder's Substack. He gives further confirmation. The Ayatollah makes it clear there will be no deal with Trump and Israel, and is making preparations to strike Iranian nuclear facilities. The Iranians are very harshly telling President Trump that he can basically go take a leap, that he's not going to get what he wants. Over the weekend, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff told ABC News that Iran will not be allowed to enrich uranium. We've heard that from Trump's mouth. They'll go on to say we're 100% committed to stopping Iran from enriching uranium. Israel's making preparations to strike Iranian nuclear facilities, and there's more. Apparently, U.S. officials have come to this conclusion based on intercepted Israeli communications and observations of Israeli military movements. The heightened worries stem not only from public and private messaging from senior Israeli officials that is considering such a move, but also from intercepted Israeli communications, military movements, multiple sources say. Among the military preparations the U.S. has observed that are the movement of air munitions, the completion of the air exercise, two of the sources said. Iran's deputy minister is warning that Iran will never agree to stop enriching uranium. Okay, that's a declaration of war with what Trump has said. Nuclear talks between Iran and the United States will lead nowhere if Washington insists that Tehran drop its uranium enrichment activity to zero. Iran must include an agreement not to enrich uranium, a possible pathway to developing nuclear weapons, and Iran says it is a national achievement from which we will not back down. So, the immovable object has just met the unstoppable force. So who's going to win? Is there about to be a war? What does prophecy say? We'll get there. And Ayatollah Khomeini has just directed some very harsh remarks at the Trump administration, saying, it would be all what the Trump is saying is excessive and outrageous. The American side and these indirect talks should avoid nonsensical remarks saying that they will not allow Iran to enrich is a big mistake. No one waits for their permission. In other words, Iran says, we're not listening to America. We will enrich uranium, and we will make an atomic bomb, and if they make it, they will use it. And that doesn't just stop with Israel. So, Michael says, this is it. If Trump wasn't bluffing, there will be war. And even if Trump was bluffing and decides not to attack, Iran, Israel, and possibly the Brits, he didn't mention, will go it alone. Russia has repeatedly warned that a U.S. attack on Iran, particularly targeting its nuclear facilities, would lead to they use the word catastrophic consequences. These statements reported across multiple sources, skipping down, military action as illegal and likely to escalate tensions, potentially plunging the region into an unprecedented disaster, which brings me to the question. Is there about to be a war in the Middle East? Well, based upon this is what I think it's saying. I've covered this many, many times, but I want to show you something deep in it. Why? Because it's already been proven accurate. Okay, so 2002, she was told Arafat would die in the hospital. At the time, he wasn't allowed outside of his compound. But we put it out anyway. 2 years later, 11/11/04, 3:30 a.m., he died in the hospital just as she was told. So that confirms the rest of it is accurate and right on. So she was told that Israel will give the Palestinians a state. Now, the question is whether Trump, in this case, is twisting Israel's arm. The Palestinian state be a temporary measure to allow the Israelis time to strengthen their military. Oil will be discovered in Israel. The oil make the Jews willing to fight for the land, and what was not said, I think it also gives them the money to strengthen their military. Now, what that says to me is that there is not going to be war with Israel, involved any place until after massive amounts of oil is found in Israel. Then if you look at point number 6, then Israel and America would go against most of the rest of the Arab world. So it may be that Israel wants to attack Iran. Now, what could happen? Well, it could be that the Brits take out the nukes in Iran. That wouldn't affect Israel. Or it could be the Brits and the Americans take it out. Or it could be that Iran just takes it. It could be that they still take out all of the nukes in Iran, and neither Iran or Russia retaliates. It could be that there is a big bombing, but nothing's done about it. What we do know, this is what prophecy says, what we do know is there's not about to be a big war with Iran and Israel because Israel will give the Palestinians a state. Now, to me that says that Trump's trip down to Saudi Arabia, to Qatar, and to UAE, probably, and also them giving him a plane, a bunch of money, probably, was the fact that he was willing to go back and twist Israel's arm, forcing them to give the Palestinians a state. Now, there is a meeting coming up, I think it was the 13th and 14th of June, and it's with the Arabs. It could be that coming out of that, maybe there's not a Palestinian state given before June 4th, which is the last day of the counting of the Omer. I've explained that many times. Let me go on and make my point. It could be that maybe the headline doesn't come out before June 1st. Maybe the headline comes out maybe later on in the month of June, but it still says Omer ushers in Palestinian state, meaning it was actually agreed to, and or something came out of the 49 days of the counting of the Omer, but between Pentecost and, between first fruits and Pentecost, to get that right here, and something came out of that, but the newspaper headline may appear in June or maybe even July that says Omer ushers in Palestinian state. Now, let me jump to the next thing. So she was given these newspaper headlines. Now, I seldom get into this much detail, but on June 27th of 2008, that was the night that the Lord spoke audibly to me and said, Stan, I will give you the money to drill the well in Israel. Now, I have to give you a disclaimer. Cannot guarantee where we're going to get the money drilled for or hit oil in Israel. But the rest of that night, part of what he showed me was Leslie standing in front of our fireplace, holding up newspapers with these headlines. So I can verify these are of God. Omer. Now, we don't know for certain what Omer is. We think it's the 49 days between first fruits and Pentecost, which this year is April 13th through June 1st. We think. But she didn't see it written down. She heard it. Omer ushers in Palestinian state. And there's another issue because the very day that she heard that, there was a fellow named Ehud Olmert, Ohlemrt, in Israel, that had to take over because the other prime minister had some kind of a stroke or something. I don't remember. It's been, 22, 23 years ago. So I thought at the time it was that Omer. So we can't guarantee it's the counting of the Omer as in the 49 days. It could be something else we don't even know. But if it is the counting of the Omer, if it is going to happen this year, I would say it would probably happen by the end of June at least. So we're watching. Omer ushers in Palestinian state because if we split Israel, I've got 12 prophecies. I've covered them before that say that God is going to split America from the Great Lakes all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. And then the next headline of catastrophe hits America, and you can read the rest of them. Okay, now I'm running out of time. Let's see if we can squeeze in Russia, Ukraine. Okay, so this is up on Trump's Truth Social. And he says, concerning his talk with Vladimir Putin, it went very well. The conditions for that will be negotiated between the two parties. In other words, basically Trump is saying, I wash my hands of it. Why? I'm about to show you why. Russia wants to large-scale trade with the United States. Yeah, and I think that Trump should do a bunch of trading. He should try to buddy up with Russia. Now, here's what Russia is saying. There's 4 things we have to have, and it's not going to change. 1, the 4 regions in Crimea that our troops have taken stay ours. 2, there's no NATO. We're not going to allow boots on the ground. We're not going to allow any help from NATO. Cannot come into Ukraine at all. 3, an end to the killing and discrimination against ethnic Russians. 4, we be allowed to denazify Ukraine. I've told you, Ukraine is one of the most corrupt nations in the world. It is where Nazism started, went from there to Switzerland and then to Germany. That's who our boys fought in World War II. Those are all reasonable. Look, to the victory goes the spoil. So Russia's taken over these areas. They should be able to keep them. Okay? Then Zelensky just completely destroyed peace talks. Now, this was back May 19th. In less than 1 hour, here's what he did. He basically said Kiev is not going to accept any sort of ultimatum from Russia. Ukraine will not withdraw its troops. They will not give up any land. They still want to be part of NATO. In other words, he's acting like he's winning the war. And not only is he not winning the war, but it's almost totally defeated. So what basically Trump is saying is, I'm washing my hands from it. I'm walking away. Now, I thought that what Hal Turner said here was real good, if I try to get through this in time. There's no rational hope for putting together a plan for either a ceasefire or a peace as long as Vladimir Zelensky has anything to do with it because of what he's done. So, skip on. The United States should approach Ukraine's Verkhovna Rada, which is kind of like their parliament, our parliament, and tell them to oust Zelensky by lawful parliamentary means and have their parliament speaker or whatever the leader is called stand in and negotiate on behalf of Ukraine. 30 days from now, all U.S. aid stops and support of Ukraine ends if you don't. U.S. involvement in this conflict should stop. I think that we should never got involved in it. Unless we separate our country, the U.S., from this disastrous Zelensky character, I believe truly he will drag us into World War III, and I've been saying that's exactly his goal. Now, this says today, Zelensky begins his 7th year of his 5-year presidency, meaning he's out. They need to replace him. They need to replace him now. So at the end of the day, what all this is saying is, I don't think that America is going to be involved in any big war in the Middle East yet. That's what the prophecies say. And it looks like there's not going to be peace in Russia based upon what the news says. Don't have any prophecies on that. But as far as Israel, I don't see that in the prophecies that there's going to be a big war in the Middle East. Instead, the next thing that happens is massive amounts of oil will be found in Israel, which strengthens their military, gives them the finances to build their military. Then Israel and America will go against most of the rest of the Arab world. And that's when they clean their clock. Because by Armageddon, which is only a few years later, it says, 8 times, I think it is, in Ezekiel 38 and 39, that Israel will be dwelling safely. Peace, all of them. Well, that didn't happen with all the Arab nations as they are today. So that's what I'm saying today is no big war in the Middle East yet. In 2021, I started making bread. And long story short is I believe God showed me that wheat is God's famine food, just like it was famine food back in the 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine, days of Pharaoh and Joseph. And I believe that that's what God has planned to feed his people. And you get it by going to josephskitchen.com. 3 steps. First, you want to get a machine package. Second, you want to order 6 ingredients and watch some videos, download the recipes to be able to make the bread. josephskitchen.com. Most of your long-time storage food, emergency food, all of that, typically are talking $9,000, $10,000 to feed one person for a year. Joseph Kitchen can show you how to do it for around $1,000 a person, and your kids will actually eat it, and it's actually good for you. Here's some bread that I made. In my case, I lost weight, lowered my blood pressure, gives me more energy. I eat a morning, slice in the morning, slice in the afternoon, always a slice before I go play racquetball. Go check it out, josephskitchen.com. If you don't want to lose your life's savings, if you have an IRA or a 401k, the thing to do is call 800-200-GOLD. 800-200-GOLD. These folks are Christians, and they specialize in helping people not lose their life savings in the event of a stock market crash and things like that. Look, most of the 401ks, most of the IRAs are in paper, backed by paper, and as Lindsey Williams says, if it's in paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. You can lose it all. 1-800-200-GOLD. 800-200-GOLD. Hey, give them a call. Doesn't hurt, doesn't cost you anything. See if they can give you some good advice. When the suitcase nukes, I didn't say if, I said when the suitcase nukes go off, if you want your car to start, if you want your computers and your refrigerators and things like that, anything with a computer chip to work, you want to have one of these. From EMPShield.com. EMPShield.com. And they have videos up there. It takes about 10 minutes to put on. It's not complicated at all. And if you use the word prophecy, promo code prophecy, you get a $50 discount, and it helps your Prophecy Club. As you recall, this past Saturday, November the 9th, the Lord spoke to me 2 words screaming at me loud like a trumpet. Medical, medical. I take that to mean that not only myself, but also those that follow Prophecy Club, in addition to all of the other preparations we've made, we need to start making medical preparations. And I put that out, and I was deluged with emails sending me to this place. This is the place that all of you seem to like when it comes to medical supplies. So I called them, hooked up, and I've arranged to get you a 5% discount when you use the promo code PROPHECY. Promo code PROPHECY, 5% discount, and it's refugemedical.com. refugemedical.com. And as you can see, they have all kinds of, here's one of the main things you need to get. It's called a burn bucket. This tells you all about it. They also have a business bundle, a home bundle. I think everybody ought to have at least a home bundle. They also have vehicle bundles, church bundles. So they already put this stuff together, and this is not foreign-made stuff. This is all American-made, and it's by a Christian company. And you go to refugemedical.com. refugemedical.com.